Maya stood in the middle of the hotel lobby, tears in her eyes. Across from her stood the man she thought she knew. But the truth she had just discovered changed everything. The quiet hotel worker she had fallen in love with was actually the billionaire who owned the entire building. But to understand how everything fell apart, we need to go back to the beginning. Daniel Kingsley had everything money could buy: private jets, luxury penthouses, an international hotel empire. But there was one thing he had completely given up on: love. Every woman who came close to him eventually wanted the same thing: his wealth, his influence, his name. After his last relationship ended with his girlfriend secretly negotiating a prenup payout before the wedding, Daniel made a decision. He would disappear. Not from his business, but from his identity. When Kingsley Global Hotels quietly purchased a struggling 5-star hotel called the Grand Meridian, Daniel decided to personally oversee the transition. But no one would know he owned the place. Only one person knew the truth: Marcus Hale, his CFO and closest friend. Marcus stared at him across the boardroom table. "You're seriously going to work there undercover?" Daniel nodded. "No suits, no board meetings, no headlines." He leaned back. "I just want to live like a normal man for a while." Marcus shook his head with a smile. "Fine, but if this blows up, I'm reminding you this was your idea." 2 days later, Daniel Kingsley walked into the Grand Meridian Hotel not as a billionaire, but as a new maintenance assistant. No one suspected a thing. On his second day, Daniel met her. Her name was Maya Bennett. She worked as one of the hotel's housekeepers. Daniel noticed her immediately, not because of her beauty, though she was really beautiful, but because of how she treated people. He watched her help an elderly guest carry luggage to the elevator. He watched her calm an angry customer who had been shouting at the front desk. And when the guest finally smiled and thanked her, Daniel saw something rare: genuine kindness. Later that afternoon, their paths crossed in the hallway. "You're new," she said with a friendly smile. "Maintenance," Daniel replied. "Maya," she said, extending her hand. "Daniel." From that moment, something unexpected happened. Daniel began looking for excuses to see her: coffee breaks, elevator rides, short conversations in the staff hallway. Maya spoke about simple things: her younger brother Ethan, who was studying engineering; her belief that life wasn't about money but about finding someone who truly cared for you. Daniel found himself listening more than talking, because for the first time in years, someone was speaking to him without knowing he was a billionaire, and he liked it and her a lot. Weeks passed. Daniel and Maya grew closer. They began meeting outside work. Simple dates, walks through the city, late-night coffee shops, nothing extravagant, and Maya loved it that way. One evening, while sitting by the river, she looked at him and said softly, "Money changes people." Daniel felt his chest tighten. "I've seen families fall apart because of it," she continued. "But real love shouldn't depend on money." Daniel stared at the water. If she knew the truth, would she still feel the same way? Still, he couldn't stop himself. He was falling for her, and Maya was beginning to fall for him too. But far away from the quiet riverbank, someone else was watching: Victoria Langford, a wealthy socialite who had spent the past year trying to become Daniel Kingsley's girlfriend. And the previous night, she had followed him. The evening had been perfect. Daniel and Maya were walking along the hotel terrace, laughing at a small joke he had made. For a few minutes, everything felt normal, real, honest. Then a shadow fell across the walkway. "Daniel?" Both of them froze. Victoria Langford stepped out from the black luxury car, high heels clicking against the pavement. She looked flawless, confident, infuriatingly calm. Maya's laughter died. Her heart skipped, her stomach twisting. She didn't know who this woman was, but something about the way Victoria looked at Daniel made her entire world tilt. Victoria's voice was casual, almost playful. "Where were you last night?" she asked, stepping closer. "I was expecting you at my father's gala." Daniel's chest tightened. He opened his mouth. Victoria, this isn't... But Victoria ignored him. Instead, she turned her gaze on Maya. And you are... Maya's hand tightened around her coat. I'm... Housekeeper? Victoria said, smirking. I thought so. You look familiar from the lobby. Daniel, you didn't tell me you were bringing her tonight. Daniel's voice rose, strained with frustration. Victoria, she's not... Maya's eyes darted between them. Confusion. Hurt. Then Victoria delivered the blow like a blade. This man is Daniel Kingsley. The words landed like a thunderclap. Maya's head spun, her chest constricted. Every smile, every conversation, every moment with him suddenly had a shadow over it. You lied to me? Maya whispered, her voice shaking. No, Daniel started, but her gaze cut him off. And you have a girlfriend? Her voice cracked. Daniel's jaw tightened. He wanted to reach for her, to explain everything. She is not my girlfriend, he shouted, frustration and desperation mixing. Victoria, she's just... Victoria laughed lightly, her eyes sharp and calculating. Oh, Daniel, everyone knows your type. The women who fall for you always want your wealth. Don't pretend like this one isn't special to you, but come on. She's just a housekeeper. Maya's heart broke a little more with every word. She felt betrayed, deceived, and humiliated all at once. Daniel reached for her hand. Maya, please, listen to me. She pulled back, tears streaming. No, I don't want to hear it. Everything you said, it was all a lie. Daniel's voice softened, desperate. It wasn't a lie. Maya, you're the first person who ever liked me, before knowing who I really am. That's why I stayed quiet. I didn't want anyone to see you as someone after my money. Maya shook her head violently. You think hiding the truth would make me love you? No, you made me believe in someone who never existed. I trusted you. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He could see the anger and heartbreak swirling in her eyes. And then worse, he knew it was his fault. Victoria stepped closer, smirking. Well, this is fun. I should go, leave you two to sort out the disaster. Maya looked between them, a storm of confusion and despair in her gaze. Daniel dropped his head into his hands, a sharp groan escaping him. Every word he had tried to explain before seemed meaningless. Every moment he had wanted to protect her had only destroyed her trust. And in that instant, Daniel Kingsley realized something terrifying. No amount of money, no amount of apologies, no clever gesture could undo the betrayal she felt right now. Daniel Kingsley had faced hostile takeovers, billion-dollar negotiations, and boardroom battles that could destroy entire companies. None of it had prepared him for the look Maya gave him when she walked away. The hurt in her eyes stayed with him long after she disappeared down the street. Daniel stood there for a long moment, fists clenched, replaying everything that had just happened. Victoria's smug smile, her careless revelation. The moment Maya realized the truth, his chest burned with anger. Not at Maya, at Victoria. He pulled out his phone and dialed immediately. Victoria answered on the second ring. Daniel, what did you think you were doing? He snapped. His voice was cold enough to freeze the air. Victoria laughed softly. Oh, please, don't act like I ruined something serious. You had no right to interfere. No right? She replied, amused. Daniel, everyone knows we're supposed to be together. We were never together. Well, she said casually, your silence usually gave people that impression. Daniel felt his patience evaporating. Listen carefully, Victoria. What happened tonight was completely out of line. Oh, come on, she said dismissively. That girl was a housekeeper. Daniel's jaw tightened. And? You don't seriously think someone like her belongs in your world? That was the moment Daniel ended the call. He didn't trust himself to say another word. Instead, he got into his car and drove across the city. There was only one person he could talk to right now. Marcus Hale, his CFO, his friend, and the only man who knew the entire truth. Marcus lived in a modern apartment overlooking the river. When Daniel knocked on the door close to midnight, Marcus opened it wearing sweatpants and holding a glass of whiskey. He raised an eyebrow. "Well," Marcus said calmly, "judging by your face, the undercover experiment finally exploded." Daniel walked inside without answering. Marcus closed the door behind him. "Let me guess," Marcus continued. "The girl found out." Daniel ran a hand through his hair. "Victoria showed up." Marcus sighed heavily. "Of course she did." Daniel turned toward him. "She followed me." Marcus walked to the kitchen counter and poured another glass. "Daniel," he said slowly, handing it over, "I told you this was going to happen." Daniel took the drink but didn't respond. Marcus leaned against the counter. "No billionaire just disappears and starts dating a housekeeper without complications." "That's not helpful," Daniel muttered. Marcus shrugged. "You didn't come here for comfort." He took a sip of his drink. "You came here because you already know I was right." Daniel exhaled slowly. Marcus studied him for a moment before asking, "So how bad is it?" Daniel's answer came quietly. "She thinks I lied to her the entire time." Marcus nodded once. "That sounds accurate." Daniel shot him an annoyed look. "Marcus." "What?" Marcus said bluntly. "From her perspective, you did lie." Daniel paced across the room. "I didn't lie about who I am." "You hid the most important part." Marcus gestured with his glass. "That tends to count." Daniel stopped walking. "You don't understand." Marcus stared at him. "No, I understand perfectly." He set the glass down. "You wanted someone to like you before knowing your bank balance." "Yes. And now the one woman who actually did," Marcus paused, "feels like she was manipulated." Daniel didn't respond, because that was exactly how it looked. The room fell silent for a moment. Then Marcus sighed. "All right." Daniel looked up. Marcus crossed his arms. "Now that I've gotten the 'I told you so' part out of the way, let's talk about what you're going to do." Daniel leaned forward. "I tried explaining. She wouldn't listen." "Of course she didn't." Marcus walked toward the window. "You shattered her trust in one night." "I didn't mean to." Marcus turned back to him. "Intent doesn't matter right now." Daniel frowned. "So what does?" Marcus thought for a moment before answering. "Time." Daniel frowned deeper. "That's it?" "No." Marcus pointed at him. "Consistency." Daniel waited. Marcus continued. "You can't fix this with words." "What do you mean?" Marcus picked up his glass again. "You built the relationship pretending to be someone else." Daniel started to protest. Marcus raised a hand. "Relax. I'm not saying the feelings weren't real." He took a sip. "But from her perspective, everything she believed about you just collapsed." Daniel leaned against the couch. "So what do I do?" Marcus answered without hesitation. "Prove the man she fell for still exists." Daniel looked confused. "How?" Marcus smiled slightly. "Stop trying to explain." Daniel blinked. "That's terrible advice." Marcus shook his head. "No." He pointed toward Daniel's chest. "The guy she liked wasn't the billionaire." He pointed toward the floor. "He was the maintenance guy who fixed broken lights and drank cheap coffee with her." Daniel slowly understood. Marcus continued. "If you start acting like the powerful CEO now, you'll just confirm her worst fears." Daniel sat down quietly. Marcus's voice softened slightly. "You want her to believe your feelings were real?" "Yes." "Then keep being the man she fell for." Daniel thought about Maya, her smile, her quiet strength, the way she treated everyone with kindness. Marcus added one more thing. "And Daniel." Daniel looked up. "Don't try to solve this with money." Daniel frowned. "I wasn't planning to." Marcus gave him a long look. "You're a billionaire. You solve everything with money." Daniel didn't answer. Marcus sighed. "Trust me." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Trust the guy who just spent 10 minutes telling me I messed up?" Marcus smiled. "That's the one." Daniel stared at the city lights through the window. "So you're saying I should just Wait? Marcus nodded. And show up. Daniel looked back at him. Every day. Marcus finished his drink. If she's the woman you think she is, she'll eventually see the difference between the man you are and the money you have. Daniel finally stood up. For the first time since Maya walked away, his thoughts felt clearer. He headed toward the door. Marcus called out behind him. Daniel! Daniel turned. Marcus smirked slightly. If you ignore my advice and try fixing this with a grand billionaire gesture, Daniel frowned. I'm going to enjoy saying, I told you so, again. Daniel gave a small, tired smile. At the time, he fully intended to follow Marcus's advice. But in the days that followed, Daniel Kingsley would make a mistake that proved Marcus right all over again. The next morning, Daniel couldn't focus. Every corner of the Grand Meridian Hotel reminded him of her, the way she smiled when helping guests, the way she laughed when he made a clumsy joke. But the thought that Maya now thought he had been lying to her made his chest ache. He paced his office, hands gripping the edge of his desk. Outside, the city buzzed, but inside, time seemed frozen. Victoria's smug expression haunted him from last night. She had shown up uninvited, spoken with cruel precision, and left Maya questioning everything she thought she knew about him. Daniel didn't even know where to begin. Every word he had used to convince her otherwise seemed hollow in her mind. He realized with a sharp pang that he couldn't undo the hurt with words alone. Then he remembered Marcus's advice from the night before. Show up. Be consistent. Be the man she fell for. And don't try to fix this with money. Daniel exhaled. Easy to say, Marcus. Easy to say. But then another thought hit him. Maya's younger brother, Ethan, had mentioned once how tight money was at university. Daniel had a solution in mind. He wanted to help them, to ease their struggles, to show he truly cared. But he would do it secretly. That afternoon, he transferred the entire tuition balance for Ethan's remaining university fees along with living expenses directly to the bank account Maya had once casually mentioned in conversation. He smiled to himself. She would never see it coming. It was perfect. Until she did. Maya entered the hotel manager's office late that evening, her expression sharp, eyes blazing. Daniel, she began, her voice trembling but controlled. I just received a notification from the bank. Daniel raised a brow. Oh? She held up her phone, letting the screen glow in the dim office light. You paid my brother's tuition and his living expenses? All of it? Daniel leaned forward. Yes, I wanted to help. Maya slammed her hands on the desk. Help? Is that what you call it? You think you can solve months of betrayal with money? Daniel froze. This wasn't how he expected her to react. He had thought she would appreciate it, see the gesture as care, maybe even soften. I didn't mean it like that, he said quietly, his voice low. I wanted to... Wanted to what? Maya interrupted. Buy my forgiveness? Buy me? Make me forget that you lied to me, that you pretended to be someone else? He swallowed hard. Every instinct in him screamed to explain, to justify, to plead. But even as he tried, the words sounded weak, hollow. He knew she saw right through them. Daniel, you can't fix trust with money, she said softly but sharply. Trust isn't a debt you can repay. It's earned. Daniel's jaw tightened. She was right. She had been right all along. For a long moment, silence fell between them. The only sound was the faint hum of the air conditioning. Finally, he spoke, voice breaking just a little. I never wanted to hurt you. Every moment I spent with you was real. Maya, I fell in love with you before you knew my name, before you knew my wealth. I was terrified that telling you the truth would ruin everything. Maya shook her head slowly. You didn't ruin anything because of the truth, Daniel. You ruined everything because you didn't trust me enough to see that I would love you for who you are. Daniel closed his eyes, fighting back the frustration and helplessness. She was right again. Every time he tried to do what he thought was right, he ended up making it worse. And yet he couldn't give up. He wouldn't. He stepped closer. "I will do whatever it takes, Maya. I will show you who I really am, every single day, until you know my heart is yours, if you'll let me." Maya stared at him, torn between anger, heartbreak, and the undeniable pull she felt toward the man behind the mistakes. Daniel Kingsley had lost deals worth billions before, but standing in front of Maya now, he realized something far more terrifying. This was the one thing in his life money could never fix. However, for the first time since Victoria's reveal, Daniel felt a tiny spark of hope. But he knew this was only the beginning. Trust would take time, and he was willing to spend every day earning it back. Days turned into weeks. Daniel didn't try to impress Maya with wealth. No grand gestures, no gifts, no public displays of money or influence. He worked in the hotel like he had on the first day, fixing lights, cleaning minor issues, carrying boxes when needed, and always being present. Every interaction with Maya was deliberate but subtle. He laughed at her jokes, offered help when she needed it, and most importantly, listened. Truly listened. Maya noticed. Slowly, hesitantly. One afternoon, while they were checking room inventories together, Maya finally spoke, her voice quiet. "You've changed nothing, except that now I see the real you, I think." Daniel's heart skipped. He knew trust could never be restored with one comment, but it was a start. "I never stopped being me," he said softly. "I only stopped pretending I wasn't afraid of losing you." Over the next few weeks, Daniel continued to show care not through money, but through action. He let Maya witness his dedication, helping staff, quietly supporting Ethan's studies without any fanfare, and being there when she needed guidance or comfort. The tipping point came one rainy evening. Maya was walking to her car after a long shift. Daniel pulled up beside her in a plain, unassuming car, not a luxury vehicle. "Wait," he said, stepping out. His hair was wet, clothes damp from the rain. "I just wanted to make sure you got home safe." Maya looked at him, and for the first time in weeks, her anger softened. She saw the truth. This was not a billionaire trying to buy her forgiveness, but a man willing to be present, vulnerable, and consistent. They walked together in silence, the rain masking their quiet steps. Finally, she stopped and looked at him. "You've never asked for forgiveness," she said. Daniel smiled faintly. "I don't need to. I just want a chance to show you that my feelings were always real." Her lips curved slightly. "It's going to take time." "I'll wait," he said, "as long as it takes." At that moment, Maya realized something important. His wealth never defined him. His power never intimidated her. What mattered was the man she had always fallen for, the one who cared for her, respected her, and fought for her heart without expecting it to come cheap. Weeks later, after the hotel hosted a charity gala that Maya helped organize flawlessly, Daniel stood behind her, quietly observing as she moved among the guests, smiling and confident. She glanced back at him, and he gave a subtle nod, a silent promise. They had survived betrayal, lies, and misunderstanding, and slowly but surely the bond they shared, real, deep, and unshakable, was stronger than ever. Daniel knew one truth above all. Love wasn't about grand gestures. Love wasn't about money. Love was about presence, consistency, and the courage to show your heart, even when the world thought it could be bought. And finally, Maya could see and feel that Daniel Kingsley's heart had always been hers. She saw the man she had fallen for again. Not the billionaire, just Daniel. And maybe, just maybe, he deserved another chance. 6 months later, the Grand Meridian Hotel looked very different. The renovations were complete. Business was thriving. And the mysterious owner who once stayed hidden from everyone was no longer a secret. Daniel Kingsley had finally stepped out of the shadows, but something else had changed too. Maya Bennett was no longer just a housekeeper. She had been promoted to guest relations manager after Daniel discovered how naturally she connected with people. Yet despite his wealth and power, Daniel never treated her differently. One evening, after the hotel hosted a successful charity gala, Maya stepped outside onto the terrace. The city lights shimmered in the distance. A familiar voice spoke behind her. "Still prefer quiet places over fancy parties?" She turned and smiled. Daniel walked over, looking just as relaxed as he had the first day she met him in the hallway with a toolbox. "You know," Maya said softly, "when I first met you, I thought you were just a regular guy." Daniel chuckled. "Honestly, I liked that version of myself better too." For a moment, they stood together in comfortable silence. Then Maya reached for his hand. Not because he was a billionaire, not because he owned the hotel, but because she loved the man she had met long before she knew his name. And for the first time in his life, Daniel Kingsley knew and believed that someone loved him not for his fortune, but for his heart.